Welcome to the VetFarm Network podcast, produced by the American VetFarm Network, a program of Addie's Orchard. The American VetFarm Network is supported through a USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture 2501 grant focused on helping military veterans access agricultural education, resources, and support. Today, we're talking about agricultural financing and the role farm credit can play in helping farmers build, improve, and grow their operations. This is a topic that's personal to me. My family's been a farm credit customer for the past 12 years and through different stages of our own farming journey. We've always really appreciated the process of working with farm credit compared with other local lenders. And in our experience, they've been more flexible when we have to explain our farm assets and they understand the cyclical nature of farm cash flow. That kind of ag understanding matters, especially for farmers that don't always fit neatly into the traditional lending box. Our guest today is Marcus Tyler Jr., Customer Resource Manager with Farm Credit Mid-America. Marcus works with producers to connect them with financing, technical assistance, and other resources that can help strengthen their farm business. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Awesome. And where are you calling in from this morning?
Calling in from the house in Shelbyville, Kentucky, which is right outside of Louisville, Kentucky, where we're
Nice.
headquartered. So yeah, it's weather's nice out in Kentucky, and I hope it is where you are and the rest of our fellow farmers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, and we finally have a little bit of a mini cold spell with less oppressive humidity. So I was doing chores this morning and wasn't breaking a sweat. So I appreciate that and felt very blessed this morning. So to get us
Absolutely.
started, could you tell us a little bit about your role with Farm Credit Mid-America and what type of farmers you're working with on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. So again, I serve as the customer resource manager at Farm Credit Mid America, and I have the privilege of supporting an often overlooked market segment of agricultural production. But this segment, to me, it really serves as the backbone of agriculture, and that's the smaller farmers. So, in my role, I work to support our emerging market producers, and that consists of veterans, women, and historically disadvantaged farmers by connecting them with internal farm credit resources, financing, business acumen, as well as connecting them to external resources that help maximize their operational efficiency and increase profitability. So, in other words, I like to say Farm Credit Mid America has a variety of products to assist the loan ready farmer. However, I have the privilege of assisting those farmers who aren't yet ready to master their capital. And my goal is, how do we help get them to that point?
I love that. And then how is farm credit set up? Because I know we've often seen the farm credit logo, at fairs and conferences and things like
Right.
that. But there's different regions, right, that it's sort of broken out to in the US.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Farm Credit has been providing reliable credit for more than 100 years. The structure of Farm Credit is pretty unique. So, Farm Credit is a GSC, which stands for a government sponsored enterprise, meaning we were created privately by Congress to serve a public mission. So, in total, there are 55 farm credit associations, and Farm Credit is one of those 55. And so, Farm Credit Mid America operates in 6 states, and those 6 states include Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, and some counties in Missouri and Arkansas. So when you look at farm credit, the biggest difference between farm credit and a traditional bank. So let's just look at traditional banking first. So when you're looking at traditional lending focuses on collateral based lending. They also handle deposits and they issue credit. And traditionally, commercial banks are typically for profit corporations and they're owned by shareholders and private investors. So their primary objective is to maximize profits, generate returns such as dividends for their stakeholders. And so when you look at the aspect of farm credit lending, so we are a member owned lending cooperative and we serve more than 145,000 family farms and agribusinesses across those 6 states that I had mentioned. So we solely issue credit, which allows us to be flexible in the types of credit that we offer. So it's one of those things where we're not really boxed into a specific type of funding. but only issuing credit allows us to streamline that application process, as well as being able to provide unique financing, even in the realm of home lending. So we also have a brand of our business called Rural First, which is our component of our business that allows us to provide unique financing for rural home loans. In addition, Farm Credit Mid America is a relationship based lender, is what I like to say. So we focus on earnings and repayment capacity. So that's allowed us to have flexibility in lending for more than 100 plus years. And then I would say a benefit of Farm Credit Mid America is, being that member owner, a part of that member owner cooperative. And so something that we've been doing for the past 10 years is providing patronage, our patronage program. So instead of distributing profits to outside investors and shareholders, local farm credit associations like Farm Credit Mid America, we provide a patronage of our or a percentage of our patronage, which are earnings to our member borrowers. So that has allowed us to continuously expand our patronage program in modern times, returning over 1.75 billion to customer owners over the past 10 years.
That's my favorite part is that annual when I get the check from you guys and that covers,
Absolutely.
a
Yeah,
mortgage payment basically for me. So it's always like it's like a little late Christmas present. It's great.
absolutely. No,
Great when you get that check back.
it really feels like Christmas in the spring, doesn't it? It's one of those things that we look forward to doing. It's actually a really big deal for us. We kind of deck our headquarters out with the whole patronage logo. That BioStar that you mentioned is everywhere in the office, but we actually take time to have our leaders internally come out. Our FOs are out. We're invited to cookouts. We're invited to barbecues. But people really appreciate that dividend that we're reinvesting back into our customer owners. You know how people say all the time, like your success is my success. Somebody is trying to sell you something, depending on how well you do, I do well. It's really that feel of investing in our customers, because our customer success determines our success. And so we make it a big deal to go out, deliver checks, and they really appreciate that.
And I think that's something for people to really consider when they're looking at lending is, I mean, that interest rate, is a vital thing, but there is also the reality that they're all fairly similar and you might get half an interest point different, but you're going to get worse customer service or you're not going to get
Absolutely.
that financial ag education piece. And I think, especially for my husband and I, we're first gen farmers. We didn't have a lot of financial literacy in school. I think that piece I have felt more like our local farm credit office. I can call them when I don't understand something, get a human being on the phone. It's not routed, internationally to just some call center, and somebody's going to walk me through that piece. And then
Absolutely.
we go to a lot of beef expos and different conferences, and there's usually a farm credit person there who, again, will sit down with you, or you can go out to dinner with them and you can go through your specifics. And even if they aren't your agent or tasked with you, they're very open to trying to help you be a more successful farmer. And that is, unfortunately, I think with bank consolidation, I'm sure that probably
Absolutely.
was the way that a local, you know, a city or state bank used to be back in the day. But unfortunately, with consolidation and, international or just large companies buying up banks, you can't just go to your local, even a credit union is not going to probably have someone who knows anything about farming and understand
Absolutely.
why you're spending more money in the spring and why does all your income when you're a turkey farmer for the holiday come in after November. I mean, those are very simple basic facts that you can't explain to a lender, and it makes you look like an unreliable or not a good investment as a customer. So that's a
Absolutely.
really
Absolutely.
important role that you guys play. And when you're sort of speaking, you spoke on a little bit of your different sort of menu of products and services, but can you just kind of break that down? Like, are we talking about land and equipment or financing livestock, fencing, buildings, operating expenses, like kind of in a practical way? How would someone use a couple of the menus of services that y'all offer?
Absolutely. I had great question, and I had mentioned earlier, when it comes to our lending structure, we're solely issuing credit, which allows us to be more flexible in what we're able to offer our borrowers. So that extends from the range of operating lines of credit, market loans to kind of help get the business going and to advertise some of those products and to cover those upfront costs, either in production times or the harvesting aspect, farm loans, real estate loans, IT equipment loans. I mentioned our rural first home loans earlier, and even crop insurance. So we dive in those realms, which allows us to be pretty flexible. And another component is to have strong partners. So we don't necessarily want to recreate the wheel in all aspects, but to respect it. So we work pretty commonly with USDA and the FSA with joint financing, their down payment assistance program as well, to make these loans a true opportunity for those looking to utilize, funding. And I think it's pretty important that when someone comes to the table or comes into their retail office, that they have a good understanding of where they are and where they're looking to go. That way, we're able to point them in the right direction and we're able to help make sense of the situation. We want to do something or create business that's not only advantageous for the customer, but also for the association that allows us to continue to be good stewards of our dollars for our other customer owners. So sometimes, um, I guess you could say funding is subjective. One person may be looking for financing or may be ready to handle financing, and someone else may have an opportunity with utilizing or just needing a connection to some of those federal programs that provide those upfront grant dollars. So it's really about understanding our customers and our customers understanding their operation, where they are, so we can kind of help point them to some of our products, some of our external resources and partnerships as well for them to grow.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you touched on, and that I've experienced personally. We had someone come to our farm and say, kind of, you're not ready for this type of financing that we initially wanted. And I think that that's another unique specialty or service that y'all offer that someone might not when they just want to sell you a product. Like, you guys can pump the
Absolutely.
brakes a little bit and be like, if you really, run that farmer's market booth for a couple years first to get that experience, get the cash flow, and then before you build that on farm store and get $1 million in debt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did want to mention, because you made me think, I think you may have mentioned it earlier, but the importance of, well, knowledge is power, right? Well, matter of fact, let me say applied knowledge is power. So having somebody who understands the industry that you're in agriculture, and you had mentioned it earlier, but the cyclical cash flows of agriculture, to be able to set up repayment ability, and according to that, so that you're still profitable as a farm, you have the cash flow and you're able to make payments. Because we look at it like this: if is a farmer truly profitable if they have to refinance? Is a farmer truly profitable if they have to go into their savings, if they have to sell? So we're in the cash building, not the cash selling business. So we want our farmers to have the proper means of receiving that income, and being able to use their earnings to be sustainable in agriculture. And we also offer apply online, which is a new form. Instead of having to go into your closest retail office where that business begins, you also have the ability to apply online, and it's through a automated process which has an algorithm to either accept or deny those requests, and you can possibly get approved the same day. So that's another method that we use, as well.
And so, some of our veterans listening, they have, very unique circumstances. Some could be someone serving in the armed forces who's listening, and they're planning their business 2 years away from, getting out. We could have somebody who's a veteran and they've also been working a civilian job for the last 10 years and really wants to get into agriculture. How would they first approach farm credit? What do you sort of recommend for the most efficient and just easiest process? Like what would they bring to the first conversation? Would they just, Google and find their local farm credit office and just make an appointment? Sort of what's a good first step for people wanting to explore if this is a good fit and just kind of get familiar with those services?
Absolutely. And I think you said it as you were kind of getting into that question, is to prepare in advance, is to start to figure out where you are and where you want to go. The best way to say that I will say is to dig your well before you're thirsty. And you owe it to your financial investor to understand your current financial position. And you are your own financial investor because you put in those time, those resources, and that sweat equity. So understand currently where you are. You can all with your operation where you want to grow. So it's important to have financial statements, business plan. If you're just beginning farming, have projected statements. Have an income statement if you already are producing an income, and have a team, mentors, resources. Be connected to an organization such as the VetFarm Network, where you're able to acquire knowledge and grow and bounce ideas off of others. And then once you kind of have that piece, that good foundation, you can go to farmcredit.com. And when you go to farmcredit.com, you can type in your zip code, the zip code of your farm or where you're looking to purchase land if you don't necessarily have that land, but it'll bring up the closest retail office to you. So all the business is started and finished in the retail office. So that is who you will be contacting. There's contact information on that site once you search by zip code, and they will be your point of contact to guide you through that process. And so eventually, you'll be working with the FO, or FO will reach out to you. FO is for financial officer, and they will be your advocate, and they will help you gather that information and to put together a loan package, and then that will go through the process of their retail office, underwriting, different stages. But your FO is going to be your advocate to make sure that they're setting you up for success with the loan.
And I'll put that in the show notes as well. If anybody's driving and can't write that down, we'll have it for you to look back on. And then out of farm credits services, what's something, or even the organization, what farm credit does? What do you feel like something doesn't get the light shined on enough that farmer veterans could take advantage of or could learn from? What's something that you all are doing that just doesn't really get its due?
So I think it's both a combination of, we'll put it like this. Somebody told me before, one of our leaders, that farm credit is one of those best kept secrets. And once I started thinking about that, why is it a best kept secret? So we provide great resources, financing to our farmers, but also we have an area of improvement, and that is truly to meet farmers where they are. We've always supported farmers and we continue to grow and expand, but how can we be more intentional when we're doing that? And so there is a YBS mandate across the entire farm credit system, and YBS stands for Young, Beginning, and Small Farmers. And so the way that Farm Credit Mid America acts out the YBS mandate is through a program called Growing Forward. And our Growing Forward program is essentially a program that's designed to break the barriers of entry for young, beginning, and small farmers. And so it's not just giving a loan, but it's also holding your hand through that process. So when you apply for the Growing Forward program gives you the tier one interest rate on the market. It also gives you relaxed underwriting standards, and it's coupled with an educational component. So actually right now, our Know to Grow conference is going on in Lexington, Kentucky. We went from having 4 Know to Grow conferences in each of our states to just 2. We chose to consolidate them because people was running thin, and it was great, but we felt like we could still expand our reach and be more intentional with having a North and a South Growing Forward conference. So at this conference, we have members from Extension there. We have industry professionals, And it's a huge network for fellow customers to collaborate and learn from one another. We have succession planning there, but we have experts share back their information that they learn. And it's also a requirement for those who go through the program. Within 2 years, you have to attend a Know Grow conference in order to retain that tier one interest rate. Um, so that is one way internally that we are servicing our YBS farmers. And also to be eligible, you have to be under 35 or meet one of these criteria. Young is considered, we follow USDA benchmarking, but young is under 30 years of 35, uh, under 35 years of farming experience, or your request has to have some type of farming or production risk, which all request financial risk do. And so that's what the eligibility looks like. And then even externally is connecting with our external partners, our universities, Purdue, Indiana, across the state of Indiana. I'm also working with nonprofit organizations as well, Farm Bureau, supporting their young farmer program initiatives, minority-based farmers conference, veteran-based farmer conferences and workshops, Agribility. We send some of our or the membership from Agribility to their national conference so that they can attend. So even aside from our primary scope, we also focused on being in the community and trying to expand that access to technical assistance. I know that was long-winded, so I apologize.
I mean, I feel like at every farm event I'm at, somebody from Farm Credit's there. I mean, you guys really get out of the office, which I think is really important. I mean, you don't see that with Bank of America people going to a beef conference, and wasting the day
Absolutely.
just sitting there in the heat, chatting it up with farmers. I think that that's a very uh, unique way that your organization has decided to invest its employees' time and the cost of that to get you guys to events. But I think that that's where the magic happens, and I think we've seen that with our uh veterans in farming and Addie's Orchard events is that when when we're together, it's a different type of learning and networking. I mean, it is an amazing gift that we have the internet to do these like podcasts and webinars and office hours and emails and all that. But there's a different connection when you're really sitting down and sharing a meal with people and hearing their story and why they want to farm and um, it makes it easier to transfer those resources and knowledge base to someone as well, which is important.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't just talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk. Like you said, a lot of our farmers come from or have experience with FFA or 4-H, and so it's important not outside of the primary scope of financing, but to continuously provide strategic investments to those organizations because it's things that are a part of us. You hold on to those things, right? And you want to provide those to the next generation. And it's also the same with our board of directors too. So we have an elected board of directors that our customer owners elect to represent them, and so they work along with the our leadership team internally with Farm Credit. And so these board of directors are farmers themselves, so they're working for the best interest of the fellow farmers. So
That's powerful. Well, I really appreciate your time today, and I appreciate everybody who's listening. And again, Marcus, where can they find your website for that information that you shared earlier?
absolutely. So you can go to Farm Credit, well, actually, it's fcma.com to find out more information, community investment stories, updates, information pertaining to our association specific at fcma.com. And again, if you are looking for that retail office near you of where to begin those first steps, you can go to farmcredit.com. And I think on the landing page, you type in your zip code and it'll bring that specific retail office within our Farm Credit Mid America geography.
Great. Well, Marcus, thank you so much for joining us and helping us make agricultural financing a little bit easier to understand. And for our listeners, our next Vet Farm Network Live, which is basically an office hours, it's a 1 hour, it's going to be on July 9th. Our next one is going to be on Christmas tree farming. So we've had a lot of requests from veterans who are interested in starting Christmas tree farming, both wholesale and a U cut operation with a little agritourism. So we have a Christmas tree farmer who's going to be joining us, which I'm excited about. And that Vet Farm Network Live does require you to register in advance. We can send you the link and then Zoom automates sending you the actual sign in. And you're welcome to join us for 5 minutes or join the whole hour. You can participate, you can sit back and relax and just listen to the conversation. And please reach out if you need that information, but I'll throw that in the show notes as well. And thank you for joining us with the American Vet Farm Network podcast.